Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tim McCone. We begin tonight with emergency crews on scene of a 3-alarm fire at a business in Oxford. Firefighters from at least 10 area towns responded to knock down the flames. Here's the scene from earlier this evening. Fire broke out at Patriot Environmental and Old Webster Road. Firefighters say no employees were injured and no one was inside the building when crews arrived. Firefighters took a defensive approach and say it took a little time to get everything under control.
We haven't gotten that close to it. I mean, in reality, when I pulled in, there were explosions going on. So safety and extinguishment and saving that other building was our primary concern. As we get further into the event, we'll be pulling it apart and seeing if we can figure out what happened.
Chief Sherry Bemis tells us part of the lumber business was destroyed. Investigators will be looking into the cause. Bemis says there were no chemicals inside the building and air quality tests were performed and came back okay. Worcester remembers an American hero this week as World War II veteran and longtime community activist Herb Adams has died. Adams was 91 years old. He's seen here receiving an honor from the Netherlands in 2013. Adams was a decorated paratrooper in World War II.
He cared about the state, the country. You know, he fought for his country, and it's a big loss. It's a big loss, and we're losing a lot of World War II veterans, and he just made the city a better place.
After the war, he was a Boy Scout leader and was an active volunteer repairing and maintaining parks and monuments around Worcester's Indian Lake.
The Boy Scouts really looked up to him. They could see that he was doing a lot in the community, and so he was really a great example, not just to them but to us, what somebody can do to really make the community a better place.
A memorial service will be held at a later date. A ribbon cutting today for the first recovery high school of its kind here in Central Mass. The high school has been open for a few weeks now. Today, the school welcomed in elected officials and visitors to tour the location. Students from the school were among today's speakers. The event also included a $5,000 donation from AdCare Hospital to the school.
Because every day I receive 2 or 3 more new referrals. So clearly the word is out and kids are realizing that to go back to their school where they were using prior to gaining treatment is not an option for them. So we have lots of kids who are calling themselves now. That's a new thing for us. Primarily our referrals came from parents initially, but now we're having schools and students actually call themselves and ask if they can come to the Recovery High School. So there's a need.
The school is hoping to eventually have the capacity to hold at least 50 students. As we first told you Tuesday night, Worcester police are announcing the arrest of 16 gang members. Our Olivia Lemon spoke with the police chief today, who says it's a significant step in keeping the city safe.
There's no easy solution, and sometimes it takes time, and it's easy for somebody to get up and say, more needs to be done. The fact of the matter is, a lot is being done.
Answering a rise in gun violence this summer, Worcester police arrest 16 gang members. Police Chief Gary Gems says the undercover investigation started in the summer. His officers worked with state police, the FBI, and the DEA. We
put 18 additional police officers out on the street. We did something a little different this year. We had them actually walk the neighborhoods, develop information, which assisted us in our investigations.
Gems says the investigation targeted guns, gangs, and gun violence. He says the arrest led to 8 firearms being taken off the streets.
We didn't go out into a neighborhood and just started targeting a certain group of people. What we did is we really focused on those that we were able to identify that were involved in gun violence, involved in gangs.
It's really critical that these high-impact players who've been involved in some of the uptick in shootings and violence that we saw over the summer be removed from the streets of Worcester, and not just removed, but taken off the streets for a long period of time.
City Manager Edward Augustus says police were able to collect the information and evidence they needed to make these arrests. He says the focus was on developing relationships with the community to get information.
Long term, that's going to pay dividends by making sure the police have a good rapport with the community and know the community, and the community knows the police officers.
The community has the information that we need if we're going to solve the problems.
Jem says many of those arrested had criminal history, and it's now up to the court system.
We'll continue to monitor the activity in the community. We'll continue to make sure that if these individuals resurface, that we're focused on those individuals that are involved in gun violence.
Olivia Lemon, Worcester News Tonight.
Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey is weighing in tonight about daily fantasy sports websites. It comes in the wake of a report of an employee from DraftKings possibly using inside information to win money on a competing site. Healey says her office has contacted both DraftKings and FanDuel. The Attorney General says while the sites are allowed to operate under both federal and state law, she wants to make sure proper protections are in place. In a statement, Healey says in part, "I want to know there are safeguards to level the playing field for all users and to protect kids." The MBTA is making it easier for commuters to get to Boston. Transit officials announced plans to add faster, nonstop services at Union Station. Our Andy Madison has more.
This is a game changer.
It's an announcement commuters have been waiting for.
The commuter rail will run a nonstop train that leaves Worcester and arrives in Boston in less than an hour.
Applause echoing throughout Union Station as Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito announces plans for faster service to Boston. The MBTA says the express trains will start in May on weekdays, aimed at giving commuters more travel options.
It's going to make a huge difference. We'll have 2 additional express trains, and they have that reverse commute coming. More people be coming here to live here because we offer whatever Boston offers at a cheaper price.
The first train will leave Union Station before 8 a.m. and will get into Boston at 9 a.m., cutting off 30 minutes of travel time for commuters. Passengers we spoke with say it's great news for the city.
That would be phenomenal. Really, really nice.
That's awesome. I wish they, did all this a lot earlier.
It's also another step in MBTA looking to improve service. And today it came with a pledge from the T's general manager.
We will not have a repeat of the issues we had last winter.
And for commuters, it's about time. Andy Madison, Worcester News Tonight.
It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and on any given day, thousands are affected by it. Worcester has organizations working to protect and advocate for victims and survivors. Our Patricia Nicholas spoke to a few of them today, and she has our story.
Some of the strongest women I have ever met and some of the bravest women I have ever met have been running for their lives.
Parley Jones works for Abby's House in Worcester. She helps provide shelter for women in need. Many of them are affected by domestic violence.
I did 13 intakes in September, and out of those 13 intakes, 7 or 8 of them had been in some way, shape, or form victims and survivors of domestic violence.
Abby's House is working with other agencies this month for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. They will be hosting a variety of events to highlight the issue of domestic violence.
It's all of our responsibility to help stop domestic violence, or at least help that one person that you hear being abused so they feel like somebody still cares.
According to the National Caucus of Domestic Violence Services, on one day alone, agencies across the United States serviced more than 67,000 domestic violence victims. The YWCA is one of those agencies. They provide counseling, a 24-hour hotline, court-based advocates, and many other services.
The last 3 months in the city of Worcester alone, and there were of police-involved incidents of domestic violence, there were almost 1,100 between, July 1st and September 30th of this particular year.
This month, the YWCA has an empty place at the table on display, which include plates dedicated to women who have lost their lives to domestic violence. The organization is also celebrating survivors and say prevention is a shared responsibility.
That as a community, we need to stand very strong.
Patricia Nicholas, Worcester News Tonight.
A 2-year-old girl who died in her family's apartment in Worcester has been laid to rest. Funeral services for little Gigi Brown were held at the United Methodist Church in Oxford this morning. The child was found unresponsive in her Wellington Street home by a family member last week. Officials are still unsure how she died. They say they're still awaiting autopsy and toxicology results.